What a job Rush did. Cowboys complete it to Pollard in a sprint.
Wherever you fall in this running back debate, I think everybody can agree that there are certain guys out there that do deserve to be paid a little bit extra. You know, actually get some sort of compensation for the amount of production that they're offering. There's been a ton of discourse on the internet streets, as well as in the traditional media, debating whether or not running backs are being fairly treated in the NFL. Both sides make some pretty solid points, and so it's hard to really pin down a final answer. This is something that's got to be evaluated with nuance, as no player, team, or situation is exactly the same. So let's take a look around the league and see if we can pinpoint the 10 running backs that are most worth the big deal that teams are now terrified to dole out. Derrick Henry. Derrick King Henry is definitely one of the first names that comes to mind when this whole discussion of which running backs are worth paying gets brought up. The Titans halfback has been a force to be reckoned with ever since he played his way into the regular rotation in 2018. At the time, he was still splitting reps and managed to go for 12 rushing touchdowns and 1,059 rushing yards. Once 2019 rolled around, he was handed the lion's share of the carries, and, well, that is exactly when Derrick was truly crowned. He rattled off 3 1,500-plus yard seasons in the next 4, including 2020 when he went for over 2,000 yards and had an insane 17 rushing touchdowns, both of which led the league. And if you're wondering what happened in 2021, you know, the lone year that he didn't crack 1,500 yards, well, he missed over half the season with a broken foot and still managed to total 937 rushing yards and 10 touchdowns in just 8 games. Simply put, the guy is an absolute freak. He can run, he can block, and he has improved as a pass catcher in space. Based on how much Tennessee has built its offense around him, there is an easy argument that he should get paid the big bucks. Christian McCaffrey. When it comes to running backs these days, you really want to make sure that your favorite team is enlisting the services of a guy that can do it all. And the San Francisco 49ers have done just that by outbidding the Los Angeles Rams during last year's trade deadline to bring Christian McCaffrey to the West Coast. In 2022, the 26-year-old McCaffrey rushed for 1,139 yards and 8 touchdowns and added 85 receptions for 741 yards and 5 touchdowns, quieting all the doubters that had started circling after his previous 2 seasons in Carolina had been marred by injuries. There is legitimately nothing that McCaffrey can't do well on the football field. Obviously, he can run and he can block. And not only can he catch, but he can catch at an elite wide receiver type level. Pro Football Focus rated his receiving grade at 92.4, nearly 12 full points higher than the second place back Antonio Gibson. Of course, it is still a little bit scary to break out the piggy bank for McCaffrey given his injury history. But if you ask me, there are few players, let alone running backs, that are a bigger difference maker than him on the field. And when you get a player with that level of talent in your grasp, you simply have to do what it takes to keep him around long term, even if that means bucking the norm and giving a big contract to him as a running back. Josh Jacobs. Josh Jacobs had himself a heck of a year in 2022 for the Las Vegas Raiders, earning first-team All-Pro honors by leading the entire NFL in rushing yards with 1,653, setting a career best with 4.9 yards per carry. And before any haters jump out of the woodwork, it wasn't like he was doing this for some juggernaut offense with an O-line that just made his life easy. He also led the leagues in tackles avoided with 103, meaning he was doing a lot of the grunt work himself. To merely call Jacobs elusive is an understatement. He was able to avoid 26.5% of tackles, the third highest total of all qualified rushers with 100 or more carries. Jacobs isn't an overly powerful blocker, but he isn't a full-on liability in the backfield during passing situations either. And he's also proven to be quite good at catching passes out in the flats and even a little bit down the field. And finally, the kicker as to why Josh Jacobs really deserves to get paid. He is a former University of Alabama running back, meaning he shared the workload with several extremely talented running backs and didn't have to take a constant beating year in and year out like many other running backs did. I mean, think about it. He had just 251 carries during his 3-year career in at Alabama. That is nearly 90 less than he had in 2022 alone. So the longevity is potentially there. Between his dynamic skill set and his relatively low mileage, Jacobs is easily one of the most logical choices for a big payday. Nick Chubb. All in all, Nick Chubb might be the best pure rusher of the football in the entire league. Just check out his insane average of 3.94 yards after contact since entering the league in 2018. That is the most among the 129 players with 100 or more carries in that period. In 2022, he continued to showcase his talents, going for 1,525 rushing yards and 12 touchdowns, despite playing for a Cleveland Browns team with an absolutely putrid passing game. The four-time Pro Bowler is a workhorse, often said to be a great teammate and an all-around talented player, as he contributes as a blocker and receiver in addition to his rushing ability. All right, you got that? Cool. Enough said. Someone pay this man. Jonathan Taylor. Admittedly, it has been a bit of a mixed bag for Taylor since entering the NFL in 2020. The Colts took him at the top of the second round out of Wisconsin, where, as a Badger, he had an amazing college career averaging over 2,000 rushing yards across his 3 years on campus. Unfortunately, all those carries seem to have taken at least a little bit of a toll on the young running back, as he has struggled to stay healthy at the NFL level. But even with that, his production has been pretty insane. He rushed for 1,169 yards and 11 touchdowns as a rookie, despite starting just 13 games. Then he took it to a whole other level in 2021 when he led the league in rushing yards and touchdowns with 1,811 and 18 respectively. Even in a lost year like 2022 where he was banged up, playing just 11 games and the Colts were bad, he still managed to go for over 860 yards. The fact of the matter is that Jonathan Taylor is a special talent and the kind of back that you can build an entire offense around. He should be on the Colts short list of guys to pay, and if they don't wise up, you better believe that someone else will, especially if he can put together a strong bounce-back campaign in 2023. Tony Pollard. Over the past couple of seasons, Tony Pollard has quietly become one of the most exciting running backs in the league. He is explosive, versatile, and a game changer. The man has averaged over 5 yards per carry across a 4-year career. These numbers are honestly a little bit silly. And to be honest, the only reason that he hasn't garnered more attention yet is because he's been playing in the gargantuan shadow of Ezekiel Elliott's fading star. Now that he's coming off his first 1,000-yard rushing season, which he only started 4 games in, I might add, and perhaps more importantly because Zeke is out of the picture in Dallas, this could be a breakout year for Pollard. While the limited usage might have hurt him production-wise thus far, it should certainly bode well in instilling faith in a potential suitor that he's got more than enough mileage left to really deliver their money's worth on a potentially big deal. Breece Hall. Luckily for the New York Jets, they won't need to worry about paying their young running backs for a few more years, as he's heading into year 2 and he is still on his rookie deal, because when that time does come, it is looking like the 22-year-old is gonna be in line for a big payday. And you know, rightfully so. Before he went out with a torn ACL in 2022, he was looking like one of the most explosive running backs in the entire league, bar none. He totaled 463 yards and 4 touchdowns on the ground, as well as 218 yards and 1 touchdown as a receiver, all in just 7 games. What makes that all the more impressive is how little he was really used during that stretch. Hall started just 2 games and really only used in spurts. So to quantify that, he had just 80 attempts and 19 receptions, meaning he managed nearly 6 yards per attempt on the ground and 11.5 per catch. If he comes back fully healthy and gets slotted into a bigger role, Hall could put up some pretty insane numbers over the next couple of years, and he will definitely deserve a big deal. And since Breece is on the younger side, he, unlike some of his peers, that have battled through brutal negotiations in recent years, may actually have an easier time securing that payday. Austin Eckler. How ironic is it that Austin Eckler first got his shot in the NFL by the Chargers starting running back at the time, Melvin Gordon, finding himself at odds with the team over his contract situation and sitting out the entire season. Now, Eckler, who was an undrafted free agent and hasn't gotten a big deal yet, is up against the same anti-running back sentiment that gave him his start. That said, Eckler has made an extremely compelling case to be paid handsomely. The Chargers running back led the league in touchdowns scored each of the last 2 seasons, making him just the 7th running back to do so since the AFL-NFL merger back in 1970. Also, to say that he is a factor in LA's passing game is a massive understatement. He led the league in running back catches last year with a walloping 107. He's now heading into a contract year and will be running like his bank account depends on it. Teams may be hesitant to sign running backs to big deals, but they ought to make an exception for a player like Austin Eckler, who just brings so much to an offense. Naji Harris. It might not usually look super graceful, but Naji Harris always seems to find a way to get it done. On first down, short yardage situations, in the passing game, you name it, Harris always delivers for the Steelers. And to be honest, he's kind of done so in spite of what the Steelers front office has done to him. I'm not sure exactly what changed in the Steel City in recent years, but they really have neglected the offensive line in a way that is very un-Steeler-like, for lack of a better term. So, while Harris might catch some flack for having a relatively low yard per carry of 3.9 for his career, it is important to keep in mind the context, because it really isn't just the O-line that has been relatively pedestrian since Pittsburgh took him 24th overall out of Alabama. The whole organization has been in a transitional state, especially the offense, making his accomplishments thus far in his young career all the more impressive and deserving of a payday when his rookie deal is up. Alvin Kamara. If you want to talk about pure explosiveness, Alvin Kamara should be at the top of your list. He runs with a rare combination of power, straight line speed, and elusiveness. Oh, and he can catch the ball like a wide receiver can. Not just in the flats and underneath, but also down the field. His route running is so crisp that first-time viewers would be stunned to learn that he wasn't a wide receiver all along. There's some durability concerns with Kamara, as he always seems to miss a couple of games each year. But at least he has managed to avoid that massive season-ending type of injury thus far, and the production cannot be disputed. He's managed to make the Pro Bowl 5 times in 6 years, all the while splitting time in the backfield. In fact, he's had over 200 carries just twice in his entire career. Granted, he's gotten a ton of targets every year, but it is still worth noting. Either way, Kamara is definitely one of those backs that is deserving of the big deals that teams are oh so scared to give running backs nowadays. But which NFL running back do you think is most worth a big contract? Is there anyone that we missed? Let us know in the comment section below. If you like this video and learned a thing or two, clicking the like button helps out a ton. And hey, we appreciate it. If this is your first time coming around to TPS though, subscribing is a great idea because we put out videos like this every single day. But as always, thanks for watching and we'll see you guys next time.